Death penalty repeal sweeping across states as both parties get on board. New Hampshire State Republic. Rennie Cushing and in early March, he took to the House floor to encourage his colleagues to support his bill to abolish capital punishment in his home state. The bipartisan fruit of about 6 years of work in the legislature, the Democratic lawmaker said, and one that comes 21 years since he sponsored his first piece of legislation aimed at repeal. Repeal efforts such as Cushing's are gathering steam in state legislatures across the country, mostly in places where the death penalty has been seldom issued in recent years. Robert Dunham, executive director of the Death Penalty Information Center, said, as lawmakers in both parties increasingly embrace change. New Hampshire, where one person remains on death row, is just one of at least 15 states to take steps toward ending capital punishment so far this legislative session, according to the DPIC. That includes California. Lawmakers and criminal justice reform advocates who have led the push for repeal say it's an ineffective, medieval form of punishment that wastes taxpayer dollars, ensnares innocent people, discriminates against minorities and the poor while also violating moral or religious codes. Those opposed to such in Colorado, where a bill to end the state's use of the death penalty died last Tuesday in the state Senate, all 3 of the men on death row are from the same county. Colorado State. Still, divisions remain. Despite Democrat prior to the bill being withdrawn, Dunham had pointed to Colorado as an example of the increasingly bipartisan nature of the debate surrounding the repeal of the death penalty. Just those Democrats who oppose it include State Republic. Tom Sullivan, Fields proposed that Colorado voters not its lawmakers decide whether or not to abolish the death penalty. Kent Scheidegger, legal director of the, said he supports the death penalty and has worked on cases supporting the rights of victims since the mid-1980s. He also believes repeal was. Colorado State Senior John Cook, in Washington State, where Democrats have the majority in both chambers of the legislature, prospects for repeal appear brighter. After the state's Hannah Cox, the national manager of, said that while the issue of repealing the death penalty was once a partisan one, that's changing. It was. Times. Cushing noted that in New Hampshire, there's. His bill passed the state house with a vote of 279-88 and Cushing expects it to be considered by the full Senate soon. Though you just like, well.